So how about this, guys? How about the Viper takes on a specialist as their Civ? How is that going to end? You know what? Let's find out as we hop into it. That's right. This game, it's going to be the one and only Salami facing off against Viper. Now, for those that aren't familiar, Salami, he is an incredibly skilled player. In fact, he is kind of the go-to de facto lad right now on the Delhi. If you want to know something about Delhi, he probably is the one who can feed you that info. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts coaching other players on how to play it and maybe gets a little bit of slide back money for tournaments if Delhi starts to become a bit more popular. But at the moment, he's sitting 27th on the leaderboards, 811 games played, compared to Viper, who's at 296, and he's sitting in 23rd. So only like 10, less than 10 elo rating actually separating these two, and it's going to be on the infamous choke point map, right? This one right here, the King's Pass. I love the pass map here. I think it's actually very good for Delhi especially. We actually saw Salami feature on the YouTube side of things, leveraging this map to great effect to utilize Compound the Defender after a Castle Age boom. Let's see if he gets a similar opportunity. Salami, I can't see him allowing this, right? He understands what this Civ is capable of on choke-type maps where you can delay the game until you get a favorable point. And I think more importantly, he's done this before, you know, he knows like what to expect. Viper is not going to be a pushover. Viper is probably going to have some inklings of what you have to do. It's going to be interesting to see if Viper does try to play into a TC boom situation. And considering that Salami is playing as the French, he does have that kind of, you know, subtle bait in the back of your mind of I could TC boom too. But we'll have to see. I think genuinely the way to play this is probably going to be cavalry rush, if anything, opening up as the French, just because the Delhi don't tend to field much in the way of an army to protect themselves early on. And although spearmen can be a little bit frustrating, if you actually outnumber them early on, you'll be able to raid through the spearmen and go straight onto the eco lines. And I like this move out of Viper. Something I've talked about again and again with Delhi players, and a lot of them just seem to miss this. It's really important. Delhi and Abbasids open up by going onto the berry bush. If you are up against an even semi-aggressive Civ, you should be starting by gathering from this point. It's the danger point, right? This is your dangerous gathering point. And that's why you want to get your gold, your food, everything you need early on, and then give yourself safe fallbacks, right? This wood line is quite safe. The sheep here are very safe. If you choose to engage with the dangerous elements of gathering early before your opponent reaches feudal, you will have more to fall back upon if you come under pressure in the mid-game. And that's entirely what this is about. So, Salami, right now, what is the split? He's got 3 people over here. Looks like he's going to get decent timing. He's going to stack extra gold. The reason you do this is France, they're going to want to use that gold instantly to get their hands on some knights. Of course, we're kind of making an assumption here that it's going to go knights. There's still have options open to Salami. Salami, the big one would be to actually gather scouts, get pro scouts, and snatch away all the carcasses. That would be an interesting thing to see, is whether Viper actually plays into Pro Scouts. I highly doubt it, just because of the extra time it takes to research Pro Scouts, right? Because yes, you do get it for free, but it does take longer. So the other thing to keep in mind with that is usually Delhi, I'd say on average compared to a lot of other Civs, whether there's water or not, feels a little bit slower to reach their tech up than, say, France, Ruse, these other Civs. And you see it already, right? Viper, because he stops off to bang to actually, you know, drop this mosque, and then he wants to gather the extra wood so he can get all these production buildings out. He's a little bit behind in that regard, so he's not ready for that tech up yet. In fact, yeah, you can see it. 3 people in wood. Compare that across to France. 0 people in wood. Going to fix that now, by the way. You have 2 options, France. You're even going into mass stables, or you're thinking about stables into archery ranges. Either way, you're going to need surplus wood, so it's important that you have enough people getting on that wood line in the early game. And look at this, straight into the mills. So obviously, you can probably guess what's coming next, right? You're not doing this to gather bushes from bushes as the French. You're doing this to get your hands on the Pro Scouts. And with the School of Cavalry almost complete, with a 20% quicker production rate, you're about to churn out the Scouts very fast here. And it looks like Viper is aware of his weaknesses. You can see he's actually dropping Iraqs already. I like this play. And straight into Dome of Faith. We never seem to see Tower of the Tower of the Defender, is it? Tower of Victory, sorry. We never see Tower of Victory. You see, that's how little I see it, is I can't remember the name fully. Tower of Victory, for those who don't know, it gives about, and it actually says around, by the way. It's about or around, so it's like, it's aware that it's a bit dodgy on the numbers. It gives around a 15% attack speed buff to any units that run near it. Sounds cool, right? Perma attack speed buff. Wow. Problem is, this is bugged. It doesn't work with all types of units at the moment that it's meant to work with, and feels a little bit clunky to use. So in general, we don't actually see many civs engage with it at all. And it's not like a comparative to, say, the Deerstone, right? For the Mongols, the Deerstone that you can actually move to a new location to utilize it further on. If your production lines move ahead of your base, all of a sudden the Tower of Victory feels worthless, right? So it's a problem they need to work out with that building. I think if they resolve the bugs, maybe it starts getting picked up. Dome of Faith is just too tasty, right, though. It's not the biggest it deals from a, like, wow, that's game-changing, the scaling of, like, the Golden Gate. But the fact that you get your Scholars for 50% of the price, which means you're paying 75 gold, is a huge amount of savings for a Civ that tends to churn out several of these in the early phase of the game. And that's why it's always the go-to. So, there we go. Scouts coming out. Pro Scouts halfway researched right now. 5 scouts out already for Salami. Viper just trying to get aggressive in the face of his opponent. Something to highlight is that Viper did go for the double scout, right? Yeah, I believe he stopped at just 2. Don't get tricked by this when you see the military count for, like, Viper in this situation. Obviously, one of them is because the scout just died here. He's still got 1 running back. The other 2 military units, hilariously enough, are the religious units, which are peaceful people that just like to capture things and heal people. But they are indeed counted as military units. So Blacksmith also being dropped. Spears are moving out, but he really needs to move across to the choke point and wall it up. I'm kind of surprised that Viper hasn't moved quicker. But at the moment, he's just holding the choke point. Pull him back with a scout and then just trying to bait in his opponent a little bit. He needs to be fast. You can already see Salami is sending out 1 or 2 knights, right? With the scouts as well. So his first goal here is to move into his opponent's side of the map and snatch a bunch of the carcasses away from him, just in case Viper is considering it. But that isn't his big concern, right? Salami understands this Civ inside out. It's unlikely that the Delhi player is going to be gathering the carcasses up. The more important detail is the Delhi player could wall off this 1 pass point across the map, right, via Spearmen who can place palisade walls. So you want to get in, snatch the carcasses, and get out before that wall goes up. And yeah, you can already see the Knight is just baiting the Spearman around. You don't want to let him easily get ahead of you and put that wall down. Otherwise, you're going to have 5 scouts stuck behind enemy lines for quite a while. In fact, you could easily do this as Viper. You have to understand that he's ran scouts there, right? So if he drops walls right now, this is actually a really big brain play from Viper. Let's see if he does it. Needs to be quick because the deer are already being dragged back. And there you go. He's starting to construct the walls. Wait. Oh, no. Oh, no, Viper. Okay, he's getting it done still, but I don't think he realized this. And look, he's doing this on purpose. He's making them all just semi-constructed so they block in. So I think the plan with this, usually you can, for those that aren't aware, Delhi, they get the ability to actually build walls and such with the infantry. The reason he seems to have not done this, I think, is because he wanted to keep the Spearmen on guard to attack the scouts. And you can see him now just forcing him to stay in his neighborhood. It's like one of those creepy horror movies where you find out it's a murder house and the person's like, why are you leaving so soon? We're only getting started. So we'll find out how quickly they're getting started. Oh, stabs 1 down though. Salami sneaks through Viper. He wasn't looking. So stops 1 of the scouts going back, but the other 4 will make it out. He can still wall this up. It will prevent the rest of the deer from being dragged through. That's a big deal, by the way. Remember, the Pro Scouts allows you to drag these carcasses back, the deer carcasses. You gather from them quicker than practically anything else available to you right now. So that's why it's such a powerhouse. If you're wondering what's one big thing you can change about your early game to win a lot more games in Age of Empires right now, folks, it's genuinely this. If you're playing a Civ that can actually be enabled by getting scouts, right? If you actually have a way of getting scouts easily, whether you're like the Mongols, the Rus, Chinese, or French, you should be getting scouts and getting pro scouts straight away and gathering up those carcasses. If you're playing something like Abbasids, Delhi, less so. It's a little bit more of a struggle to work that out. Yeah, I'm starting to think the Viper doesn't know that you can build walls with Spearmen. At first, I was like, this is strategic, so he has his scouts guard. It has his Spearmen, rather, guard for the scouts on the choke point. But now I'm actually convinced he just didn't know he could do it with spears, because they were just standing there when when they could actually been building the wall alongside, so it would have all been constructed already. Instead, looks like Salami is going to actually find a way in off the back of that mistake. Already having a few knights and a few archers. Remember, the archers count the spearmen. These are hardened spearmen, but you have to gap close, and also there's that bonus damage to consider that you get from the archers, doubling their damage up. It's going to be a problem. And in fact, if I'm Salami, I might just drop a second archery range in the next minute when I can support it. And just ramp up that pressure, essentially. Viper already a few eco units behind. You always expect this, folks. When you're playing against France, remember that France, they produce villages quicker than any other civ by default. So you need to find a way to boom yourself or apply pressure. Otherwise, you're going to get outscaled. And I think that's what we're going to see at this rate. So, archers? Split up is awkward for Salami. He's going to lose the archer line to the double horseman. And the spears will just keep on chasing the knights. Not the optimal way to play that coming out of Viper. But Viper, he might be able to become the sniper, right? He can at least take out this scholar who was capping the sacred site. And you can see the pressure continues. Now you can finish off the walls. And these horsemen are going to get their value, right? They've already slayed, like, what, I want to say 4? At least 4 archers. Which means they've paid for themselves. Remember, archers 30 food, 50 wood, compared to the horsemen 100 food, 20 wood. So yeah, you're happy with that trade overall. And now with the walls down, this pass should be guarded. There is going to be a decap from the roaming knights that got through from Salami. But these can't actually fully decap because of the spearmen. You're seeing that right now. Chase in, forces him off. And it's important, you want to keep control of this Viper. Viper, as long as he has control of this, remember that eventually he's, well, not even eventually, he already has it, he's going to get his hands on Sanctity. Sanctity is a research that unlocks in Feudal, and what it allows you to do, it allows you to not only capture these sacred sites before Castle Age, because remember, most civs have to wait until Castle Age, it also ensures that instead of getting 100 gold treacle per minute, you end up with 200. So, nice big, juicy plump of 5 workers gold intake for a minute, basically, is the way I like to think about it. Usually, if you think about villagers, the average villager should be gathering about 40 gold a minute. I believe the maths is around that. It's roughly around that number. So that's actually a good metric to like stand by if you want to know how much each of these kind of like sites are worth or how much a relic is worth in terms of saving economy. So what that means is, by the way, the current difference is 5, as you can see there. It's actually not. It's even because of that gold treacle that you're getting off of the sacred site. Horsemen in a little bit of trouble. Nothing they can do here but die. And it looks like the knights are back over here to be pesky. Scout's just trying to get through. Nice stabbing onto the scholar. We'll get rid of him. Remember, that costs 75 gold, and we'll back away with the knights in time. Does lose one of the scouts, but that's actually fine. That's a 50 to 75 trade, and the 75 is a more valuable resource, right? The gold compared to the food. But now with the archers ready to move in slowly, as you can see, now that they've cleared up everything on Salami's side, you should be able to raid, you should be able to get through this palisade gate without being poked at by the spears because there's just too many archers. And even with a few horsemen, I don't like your odds here. This is a lot of archers with some cannon fodder in front of them. So Viper, he kind of needs 1 or 2 more of these horsemen right now. You can see he's actually just looking to triple up the racks. And it's going to be good timing. He's getting the compounded defender. This is where you get online. And I'm kind of impressed with the way that Viper's kind of held this. Despite letting a few knights leak through, he actually got the walls up just in time. It could have been quicker, but at the end of the day, it might be quick enough. He's definitely going to need it very soon, though. You can see New Age is already reached for Salami. Salami first to actually beat him to the punchline. Now, Viper, with the compounded defender, will have the ability to place stone walls, all those defenses with his troops, and also, more importantly, we'll finally get access to man-at-arms being in the Castle Age. Man-at-arms that will counter out most of what's coming at you right now. Because remember, it's primarily archers. And I love this play out Salami. It's very all-in, but it's because he understands the power spikes of Delhi, right? Like we said, this is the Delhi Supreme. This is the spammer of Delhi. This guy has more games on Delhi than probably anyone else in the game right now. So if anyone's going to understand how to exploit their weaknesses at different points, it's going to be him. He has to be quick. And with the Garrison Scholars, you can just see how quick these man-at-arms get produced. 11 seconds for each unit. He needs to raid. He needs to strike straight into the economy, and that's what he's trying to do. He's got limited time, though. And these villagers from Viper, they're not moving away. They're being dragged away. His attention is elsewhere. He had to pull them back from the berry lines the knights were raiding, which means he's going to lose a lot in his nearby berry line here due to the archers. The archers that now can back away. Remember, those man-at-arms way too slow compared to the archers, not able to gap close. Meanwhile, on the backside, you can see more yoinking going on. This is the other part, right? Not only are you denting his economy, but you're getting more boosters to your own. That catalyst, right? Because that quicker gather speed from the deer. Oy, oy. You see, just backs up slowly away from the man-at-arms. Remember, he did tech up first, so we should see Arbors coming out soon, the Arbor-Latriers. Love this move out of Salami. This is a really cool idea. So he walls across the intersection to ensure he can't be walled in again. So now, this is really frustrating for Viper. If you were able to expand that further as well, Salami, it'd be even better, because what Viper could still do is he could stonewall ahead of this, but that was the main prevention. You didn't want him to rebuild the palisade, and more importantly, you didn't want him to put another stonewall here. But you can see now he's just going to build around it with the palisades. Really should be going for the stonewalls in this situation. He just needs to get France out of his side of the map, and that would permanently do the deal. But of course, this way he can at least build these up quicker to try and prevent the scouts if he quickly does micro this. And it looks like it's going to be too slow. Doesn't stop them getting through. I don't know if he was looking elsewhere. I think so. Like, he had a few of these knights running in, right? The man-at-arms, rather, running in. But he has forced his opponent back. The problem is now there's going to be a transition. Salami should start switching over to Arbor-Latriers and man-at-arms himself. I think this might be the first time in a high-level game I'm going to see man-at-arms coming out from France. I mean, sometimes we see them drop a Rax to get some spears, but never for the man-at-arms. It's not a bad choice in this, by the way. The whole concept is you're doing this because you should be up against a static army, right? And the reason that's a good idea then is because with this static army, what you're essentially doing is you're saying, okay, my opponent won't be able to like flank around. He won't be able to like move around. He'll have quality trades in a melee or melee with no like counters in play, but he can't actually reposition well. So the whole concept of Salami is he wants the thin front line, which is then backed up by a heavy dose of Arbor-Latriers with the crossbows, right? And that's why you can see that if you look at the infrastructure, it's double archer range, or triple rather, and then 1 Rax. And now he's got trip stables as well. So he's going to go for probably, and I think this is a bit greedy, but he might be able to afford it with gold numbers to an extent. Arbor-Latriers, man-at-arms, and a small quality force of knights. The whole concept of the knights is if your opponent then tries to counter into, say, you know, ranged units himself, or he tries to do this and go to the siege weapons, you'll be able to flank. I am also a fan of going for the horsemen, just because, like, horsemen are great raiders onto artillery units, right? You could also even just spam scouts. And in fact, it's been like a week since I've seen a player commit to this, but against siege weapons, right? Remember at the end of the Age of Springald, we really did start to see a lot of players double down on the concept of using scouts to burn through the Springolds. Same concept for Mangonels. Here we go. Scouts move in, trying to burn that Mangonel down. Knight even jumps in as well. Needs to move quickly here. Doesn't want to lose the crossbows. Scatters him a bit. Heavy damage, but they're still alive. And remember, Viper, he can't snipe these out. He doesn't have any range units. And Mangonel retreats behind the line for the moment. Barely alive, though. If he fires out a salvo of arrows at this, I'm pretty sure it would fall. But not doing so just yet. Instead, going to drag the fire away from him. And these crossbows, they are getting rid of a decent amount of these man-at-arms right now. We'll lose 1 or 2 more arbors, but forced to back away. And that is a problem for Salami. He's forfeiting ground he can't afford to give over. This is the worry, right? When you let Viper reach this point, when you let any Delhi player reach this point that knows what they're doing, this is what begins to happen. It's the wall crawl. That's what we're going to call it. It's the wall crawl where you just basically slam down 3 or 4 towers of walls, plop down a tower, and then just chill on your way towards their base, right? And this is what will happen. It'll just be the... I like to think of it as a cover and move. You can already see he's setting up. He's also doing it around the sacred sites, which I love this as well. I love this idea from him, which is, okay, I'm actually going to secure a backfold where if I somehow screw up when I push into your base, I'm still going to have the sacred sites capping. And this is the power of Delhi, folks. This is the power when you put them on these hard-to-flank type maps, right? On the choke point ones like Pass, like Hill and Dale. Areas they can defend because what they end up doing is exactly this. Maybe less so Hill and Dale, but definitely ones that have neutral choke points. Because they're able to wall it in so quickly, there's a fallback point. Sanctity still matters, guys. The whole concept of sacred site still matters. It's just not the same as it was. It's not this irrefutable done by 10 minutes deal. It's more for that 15, 20-minute timer, and if you hit it strong like this, with compound of the defender, you become very hard to breach. And Salami understands he needs to breach, but the defense is already in place. He needs siege weapons right now. And this is the other concern for a lot of people, and I think this is going to have to be like a hard pivot for a lot of players as well. When you go up against Delhi, if you are behind, it has to be siege engineering. If you're on equal footing, you have to consider Mangonels. And I think that's why Delhi, like, depending on the map, are low-key kind of broken. People just haven't fully cracked it yet, but they're starting to. The reason being is that if you think about the timings and you think about when you get access to Compound the Defender and you think about when people tend to siege, Wolves is just like, I want to breach, want to move beyond. If your opponent puts down loads of towers at this stage in the game aggressively, the problem you have is that your only options are either battering rams or trebs. Battering rams can feel wonky because man-at-arms will be guarding on the walls. Trebs feel wonky because they're just underwhelming as all hell right now, right? It's kind of ridiculous day and night comparison when you look at bombards versus the trebs. So I think that's something that might have to switch up. I don't think Delhi are necessarily broken across the board. I just do think there are certain maps that allow you to exploit this. And I think it is going to make them a desirable variable pick in tournaments in the future as more players learn this, is that when you play into this type of strategy, there's not a great counter. Unless you deal with the Delhi before this point in the game, you're going to struggle to get back into it. And that's what we're about to see out of Salami. A lot of people on the gold. Salami still building up that force, but still no siege weapons and no sign of getting his hands on the siege engineering. So the concept behind his breach is really wonky. There's just so many walls here. And look at the Mangonel spam as well. Viper has got this completely well read. Like, he has just tapped directly into Salami's vein. He's siphoned off his blood. He now has the Delhi power. Salami moving in. Mangonel fire coming out, forcing him away for the moment. 15 spears, 34 man-at-arms. This is very hard for Salami to breach. And Salami, no Mangonels of his own, remember. He was just dedicating everything to something that can hit into these Stonewall towers. And look at that. After that attempt, only 500 damage done. It's just underwhelming at this stage. And not long left on the Sacred Site timer, right? Like, I think we've got maybe half the duration done already. It feels like it could have been 5 minutes. I'm not sure if it was exactly 5 minutes. I definitely would say from Salami's perspective as the French player up against this and a guy who knows Delhi inside out, you feel like it's been an eternity already. And you have to understand that in that small break in time, it doesn't take long to build these defenses. You can see it, right? 8 seconds, a minute on the Stonewall Towers with your infantry in the field. It's a huge benefit to Delhi in the Castle Age because it means that you've actually got this ability to aggressively forward base while not sacrificing much of your economy compared to most civs that would have to roll up 10+ villages to achieve similar results. Yeah, there you go. There's the siege engineering. This is so late though. This is needed to be a bit sooner. I think you've allowed too much time to pass now. There's just more and more man-at-arms. There's a forward base nearby. There's more siege weapons coming out. And Viper getting close to his pop cap at this rate. Only 59 eco, but that's all he needs to sustain this, right? All he needs is to match up to the 200 pop cap, draw out one fight evenly, and then he'll allow the towers that he's placed to do the rest of the work. And now finally Mangonels. Salami, though. He's got to be fast with this. Oof. Okay, this is a problem. Viper, it's not just that he snuck this base, it's not just that he's snaking his way to a victory on the Sacred Sites, it's that he's also imping up, knowing his opponent cannot, remember. Because Salami, he has to get so much surplus force together to push through this defense. It means that now Viper, not only is going to have a quantity, he's going to have a quality advantage over Salami. And we can see it in the numbers, right? Still with over 100 military pop lead, and about to have that quality factor of being up at Imperial Age 2. And this is important as Delhi. If you can hit Imperial Age first, it's going to allow you to get your hands on those researchers that are free, but take a little bit longer, right? Say 3 minutes, for example, for the elite status on Man-at-Arms. And there it is. Teched up, Salami. Look how quickly he's losing one of the battering rams already. The Springwood army shows up. The Mangonel spam out, forcing him into retreat. And Salami, he gets one of the towers, but how the hell are you going to get through the rest? More Springwood fire incoming. And he just calls it. He actually calls it there. And this is a really kind of controlled call. Salami, he could have tried to body this a little bit further, but he did not have the economy to replace this army when it was gone. Meanwhile, he understands his opponent just hit Imperial Age. In the next fight, if they draw each other out and the site doesn't get decapped, what's going to happen is you're going to move in that next engagement. And even if you outnumber your opponent by 5, 10 units, he's probably going to have them in elite status, right? And that's the difference maker here. That's what convinces him the game is broken done. And really amazing play out of Viper, dude. Just schooling the Deli expert on exactly how to do the Deli. It's almost like he took notes and he said, Senpai, let me show you what I've learned. And as usual, turns out Viper is the true Senpai of Age of Empires as he stomps the Deli Master.